Today we are not lecturing, but rather we'll have a dialogue as we usually do during Shiva Mathur's sessions, but with particular reference to Jiddu Krishnamurti. All of you are well aware about Krishnamurti, his life and teachings. Theosophical Society found him and Annie Besant and Leadbeater became his guardian, sort of. And they saw in him the world teacher. And accordingly, he was taught and trained. For a long time, he was in the Theosophical Society, but later on, he got separated and continued his role, whether you call it as a world teacher or a messenger or just a thinker. Perhaps he himself would have preferred to be just a thinker without any other qualifications. Why he separated from Theosophical Society? That perhaps in the course of our discussion, we may arrive at some understanding. Let us not discuss about it in the beginning. His role as a teacher was to bring to the notice of humanity that in the long march of humanity, something somewhere has gone wrong. And it has missed the direction or the right path on which it should have progressed. And in his own way, he tried to analyze and gave perhaps his own understanding to the world. But he never assumed the role of a teacher who expects the taught to just accept what the student is taught and repeat the same thing over others. Throughout, he just tried to be one with the audience and made them think in their own way instead of just following the footsteps of the speaker. Throughout, he insisted that there is no need of an authority to understand truth. Everybody is competent if he really uses his own resources in the right way. He felt that there is a need of a new mind for humanity. And this new mind should be the mind which is the natural mind. The mind which the nature has provided to him, to man, for its own development and happy living. And therefore, throughout his speeches, he pointed out how the humanity has misused this precious instrument, mind. And therefore, he did not talk much about other problems which theosophists or even most of the spiritualists deal with, like life after death or the genesis of the universe, the chains, cycles, rounds, races. He hardly touched any of these issues. His focus was on a common man and more particularly on individual. He never used the words like individuality as separate from personality as we usually speak about. But he did talk about the whole man, indivisibility of his being. And perhaps his emphasis was man should be that whole man, which is indivisible, as against the man as he is found today, where he is almost a divided being. He talked about universal problems, social problems, but he held individual as responsible for all that. Every one of us is party to the present state of affairs, which are far from what man can really achieve. When he say man should have a new mind, he referred to a creative mind which is capable of bringing about fundamental change, radical change, not just change step by step. He talked about end of time. He did not talk about evolution as a gradual process consuming time. He was referring to creative intelligence. That is the mental energy which makes mind a creative force or instrument. He did not talk at separation of universal mind and individual mind. He did not talk of ideals. Which we normally talk about as our aim or goal to be achieved in distant future. His emphasis was on immediate, instantaneous action. And yes,
आवाज कमी झाला का कळत नाही.
काय प्रॉब्लेम?
आवाज म्हटलं
कमी झालाय का? गायब झालं काय?
ते कळत नाही काय झालं.
काय क्लॅरिटी नाही आहे का?
क्लॅरिटी आहे मला तरी आहे.
अच्छा. So, with this opening remarks, as I mentioned in the beginning, perhaps I would prefer a dialogue rather than a lecture. Just to, I think, as introductory remarks, what I have said may provide some food for thought and express yourself. You may ask questions or you may have your comments. Krishnamurti has also said, don't interpret me. In the sense, trying to give one's own explanation or clarification on what he said. He said, you think over and come to your own judgment for yourself. It is not for imposition on others, because that others otherwise develops into a cult or a dogma in the course of time. So let us try to keep that spirit in mind when we try to understand Krishnamurti. It is not just an intellectual understanding, of course. How far what Krishnamurti says can be applied in daily life. His teachings are also perhaps an outcome of his own life. Though he is considered to be a person on par with a world teacher, in childhood he was not anyway an intelligent boy. In fact, he was perhaps the last bench student if you rank him. His teachers were not at all happy with him. He received punishment at the hands of his teacher number of times. And perhaps from that background, he felt that there is need for understanding the student on the part of teacher. And therefore, he's founded his own schools also and tried to impart teaching slightly or perhaps totally in a different way. Of course, with limitations which exist in the present times. His emphasis in teaching was not on putting something into the brain of a student by the teacher, but creating an environment in which the student will be able to bring out what is already there in his brain.
Self-learning.
He
believed in self-learning.
Yes. So that approach is there throughout his teachings, right from the time he started speaking. His early writings perhaps were more under the influence of those who brought him up, like Leadbeater and Annie Besant, and his master. But even during that time, after his first book, At the Feet of the Master, another book was on education, while that was written at the age of 15. So we can understand how much importance or weightage he gave to educating the children and even the grown-up people, because the pattern of education made hardly any difference with age. And therefore, he wanted a drastic, radical change in the teaching as well as in learning. His emphasis was more on, as Rashida just now mentioned, self-learning through observation, relating oneself to others, to the environment in which one grows, and apply that understanding to the self, to understand self.
That's all this.
So I think now I will again otherwise continue with my lecture only. So yes,
So there is this
you introduce yourself so that those who are online will also know. Briefly, of course, in a sentence or two.
I'm Vinayak Harpal, the brother from the Poona Lodge of Theosophy. Yes.
Yeah. So what is your question?
So there is a similarity between the thought which preached by the Lord Buddha 2500 before and the Krishnamurti. That there is no need of authority or guru. Same thing we observe how he is himself evolved by about the Lord Buddha's history, like the enlistment. Same thing is told. But even though most of the cases in Indians, it is the preached, it is the spread about the people. Who is needed? Guru is needed. Authority is needed.
Yeah.
And most of them is accepted by most of the individuals. Suppose you want to go to spirituality, so you need to go to the Himalaya, some much, some temples.
Yeah.
Which is one thing. The second is that you please talk of the, which is what the, he says that there is a no difference between the universal mind and the personal mind. Number three is that that the Krishnamurti's whole life is for the common people. That's it. Means what is with common means whether the lowest part of the citizens, Indian citizens. But reality is that, what is my experience among the intellectuals, among the common people, maybe farmers, or like, no, very few of them know the Krishnamurti and his philosophy.
Yeah. So you heard brothers' views that there is a considerable similarity between the teachings of Lord Buddha and himself. Even, yes. Can you repeat? I didn't get you.
And somebody wants to ask something or say something, or your
Sorry.
Chandrasekhar Kale, I think, spoke something.
Sorry. My audio is on by mistake. I'll mute it.
I see. Okay. So, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I've been reading. This is Amitabh Pendse, brother
Amitabh Pendse, yes.
brother from Poona Lodge.
Right.
What I've read, whatever little I have read of J. Krishnamurti, is very logical. I mean, if you look at it from a scientific perspective, he takes the entire logic and arrives at a particular uh, finding. The only problem is that at times it is very difficult to understand his own experiences, because he's trying to communicate in the language which is common, which is English, but the words are insufficient to explain his own experience, and that is the reason why he probably says that you should experience yourself and not just follow what I'm saying. But for that we need a lot of practice, actually, years of practice, I think. And that is my understanding. So this is just a thing which I wanted to share with you all.
You have heard Amitabh's observation that there is a difficulty in understanding the terminology he used. In fact, this was perhaps the root problem of separation of J. Krishnamurti from Theosophical Society. Radhaji has observed that it was not J.K. who left Theosophical Society, but the Theosophists or the members of the Theosophical Society were perhaps carrying an impression that with the terminology which he was using, he was perhaps departing from the Theosophical teachings. That was the impression which most of the Theosophists of that time, perhaps before he parted with Theosophical Society, carried. And therefore, he might have also developed a feeling that his delivering those teachings on the platform of Theosophical Society may defeat the very purpose of his reaching the masses. And therefore, probably he did not leave the Theosophical Society as such, but he dissolved the order of the star in the east, of which he was the main person or pillar. Not only he dissolved, but he even
Denounced. Denounced being the world teacher.
Yeah, he denounced himself as being recognized as a world teacher.
The world teacher. He is not preparing for world as a world teacher.
Probably he did not want to accept people, accept his teachings by the people with that image of a world teacher as an authority, because that was against his own teaching, that don't accept any authority. So if he is projecting himself as an authority, then it was something contradictory to his own teachings. the words he used were perhaps more in line with the evolving language with the development of science and technology. Because in the days of HPV, science had not developed to that extent. Developments in not only physical science, but in social sciences also, like psychology, sociology, anthropology. These sciences were in the nascent state at the time of foundation of the Theosophical Society, but have much advanced during the next 50 years. 1875 was the foundation of Theosophical Society, and after 50 years, 1925, was perhaps the time when Krishnamurti was being projected by the Theosophical Society as a world teacher. So, those who were projecting him were probably expecting that he will communicate the message of Theosophy in the language in which the earlier Theosophists were communicating it to the masses. But Krishnamurti chose his own terminology, his own approach. When he was asked about those things, why he separated himself, he could have remained in the society and perhaps done the master's work better, and all that. On that, he distinguished between the Theosophy and Theosophical Society. Remaining in the Theosophical Society and talking about theosophical teachings were perhaps two different things for him. In the task of his delivering the message, he never delivered it as a theosophical message. But if we say theosophy is a divine wisdom, he never also used that word as divine wisdom. But still, he was very close to ancient wisdom. He perhaps did not talk the language even of the science of yoga or Upanishads, Vedanta. In fact, he never referred to any religious scriptures unless he was asked by the audience or speakers about his comments on those scriptural teachings. Many times even he said that he has not much studied those things, therefore he is somebody who is learned may comment on those things. Of course, he had studied a lot, but he did not put on those labels on his teachings, because then it leads to, again, controversies, again, intellectual analysis of the things. So, and that depends more on terminology, language, dictionary meanings of the things. So he was not interested in those kinds of arguments, debates, discussions. He was interested in direct communication instead of taking support for what he revealed or expressed from the religious scriptures or from philosophers' statements. He used the word religiosity many times, but not with reference to any particular religion, because he was perhaps referring to the essential purpose of the religion, essential character for which religion as an institution stands. Because he wanted people to understand their divine nature, but he never called it as divine. Because it is, for him, it is not an ideal, but an actuality. And people have forgotten that. It is not something which only few exceptional human beings can attain, but it is something common to everybody.
Awaken the humanity to their own selves.
Yeah. Yes.
Their inner
So
self.
it is to
Not just freedom, it's like
bring about
self.
that self-awareness. The reality which is not an ideal, but an actuality. So he wanted people to develop that kind of, perhaps also a confidence in that actuality or reality. Not something as an ideal to be attained in distant future by some few exceptional individuals, which was perfectly in conformity with theosophical teachings. As masters have said, once upon a time, we were also ordinary people like you. And you can also become what we are if you really exert yourself in the right direction. Krishnamurti never referred to the masters in his teachings, but he said nothing different from what masters have said. And I think that is something which, in studying Krishnamurti's teachings, we should identify, not focus on his terminology much, but what probably he really wanted to convey, which he conveyed directly, not with the support of any authority. Therefore, he was equally close to all, irrespective of the partitions which we have made in the name of either religion or in the name of nationalities or languages. These are not the natural distinctions in the mass of humanity. So, again, his focus was those theosophical teachings which do not make any distinctions in humanity on the basis of religion, caste, color, creed, sex, and all that. But he never talked about these things. Yet his teachings, I think, were largely, broadly in conformity with theosophical teachings. So his teachings were more similar even to teachings of HPB, who used terminology of the 18th century, while Krishnamurti used terminology of the 19th century. But in many instances, we can see that he probably referred to the those original teachings only.
Because his base was for teaching of the theosophy, which he utilized it as knowledge. But he did not want to influence people as a theosophist, basically.
Pardon?
He did not want to influence the people as a theosophist.
Ah,
Like
yes.
a common,
Yeah.
common man
Yeah.
to think for
So
himself
he did not
first.
want theosophy to become a creed or dogma.
Yeah.
It's a free thinking of a logical person. He made an appeal to that reason instead of taking advantage perhaps of religious faith of the people to convert them perhaps. He didn't believe in that kind of ideas. If at all it is conversion, it is a self-conversion. He talked about radical change, but not imposing a change as an ideology. Like suppose in his days, there were different kinds of isms, like say communism, socialism, capitalism, and they strongly believed that these isms will be able to solve the problems of humanity. Problems like inequality, injustice, and all those kinds of things. So he distinctly said that none of these isms will solve the problems. There has to be a radical change in an individual. Not by forming institutions, we will be able to change an individual.
Self-transformation.
Yeah, transformation.
हेलो सर, नमस्कार।
हाँ, नमस्ते।
मैं उज्जैन से शर्मा बोल रहा हूँ।
हाँ, बोलिए शर्मा जी।
जी सर। ये सर रवि रविंद्रन ने एक छोटी किताब लिखी है।
हाँ,
टाइटल है कृष्णमूर्ति, टू बर्ड्स ऑन वन ट्री। उसमें
कृष्णमूर्ति टू
Birds on a tree.
हाँ, टू बर्ड्स
ऑन वन ट्री
ट्री
टाइटल है वो।
हाँ,
वो एक लास्ट लास्ट में लिखते हैं,
हाँ,
as he became exhausted with this pouring, sometimes a great sadness came over him. Once not
sometimes a
long
great
before.
sadness. Okay. हाँ,
He says actual but once not being before his death. Once not long before his death, he said, मतलब कृष्णमूर्ति said
हाँ,
to me, मतलब रवि रविंद्रन से बोला उन्होंने।
what he said before his death?
Yeah, he said, I am telling that
हाँ,
no one understands what I have been saying for the last 60 years.
हाँ,
Krishnamurti says, no one understands what I have been saying for the last 60 years. No one. This was not directed at anyone in particular.
yeah.
Not even at me. At me means Ravi Ravindran.
Hmm.
Though, not even me, though, no doubt, I too had added to his sorrow by not understanding.
Yes, so what are your comments on this? I didn't find any connection between the first story you narrated about two birds and the second comment before his death. You want to establish any relationship between the two?
No,
No.
this I told that this is a book
Because that is
name.
a story from Upanishads, I think.
That I don't know. I want that. How he said, no one understand me for last 60 years. No one. This was not.
See, for understanding again, though Krishnamurti delivered his message logically, his emphasis was not on logic. He believed more in heart than in brain, head. Between heart and head, he gave more weightage to heart. Therefore, intellectually understanding his message was one thing, and heartily assimilating that message in oneself to bring about the radical change which he intended is another thing. So probably he was not satisfied with the reality that people studied his message and mastered it, delivered it to masses. So it was only an intellectual dissemination of what he said. But it remained at that level only. There was hardly any change which can be considered as a radical change. His, as I mentioned in the beginning, emphasis was on creating a new mind of humanity. A mind which will drop all the unnecessary things which mind has acquired in the process of long journey, which we usually refer to as evolution. He has mentioned many times that during millennia of years, human mind has remained the same. So, in evolution, what did we really gain? We developed our logical mind, intellectual mind, intellect. We also developed psyche. People with strong desire, ambitions, intellect emerged. But they utilized these faculties not for the well-being and happiness of the humanity as a whole. People used all these evolved faculties for their own individual or groups or communities to which they belong. There was hardly any understanding of its message of accepting the individual responsible for the humanity as a whole. About wars he talked. You and me are responsible for the wars which are being fought. It's not war between the soldiers or the leaders alone. You and me are equally responsible for that. People talked about Krishnamurti's teachings about peace, but we are building up armaments. They may say it is for our own defense or protection. But why are you worried about defense and protection? Are you afraid of something? So why fear about being unsafe or insecure? He went into that kind of analysis. If you understand Krishnamurti from his point of view, there should be no fear. There should be no insecurity if you are really free. His concept of freedom was different. You will be a man with free mind. It is only the free and open mind that has that creative potential. And with that creative potential, there is no reason to be afraid of anything. With that outlook, you will not consider other as your enemy or opponent. You will not feel the need of competition with others, need for comparison with others. You will have feeling of sympathy, compassion, pure love for everybody. But even after deep study of all his teachings, he found hardly any change of that nature, which may be the reason of his saying that during last 60 years, I gave my teachings, but I didn't get any real follower of my teachings. Even in individual problems, how many people have succeeded in following his teachings? As an individual, have we really changed? Have we changed in our relationships with our even dear ones? Relations between wife and husband, relations between mother and son or daughter, father and son or daughter, between brothers. We have teachings of universal brotherhood, but even at an individual level, whether we have developed that feeling of brotherhood. Pardon? Yeah, yes, we have that feeling of insecurity, the incidents taking place. What do they indicate? Are we really enjoying peace of mind? A mind which is disturbed, is it capable of that creative potentiality which an open mind possesses? We are all preoccupied with our own opinions or our strong views, our so-called convictions, we have become mentally so hard and inflexible that mind has lost its capacity to be regenerative and creative. Practice of yoga, in most of the cases, practice of yoga results into psychic development. So the real change of mind is not there. It is only at the lower end that we develop those psychic capacities. While mind has much greater potentiality in that. And then if that it develops into that, then there will be no difference between an individual mind and universal mind.
There is no tangible freedom.
Freedom is what is
What do
actually
you mean
freedom?
by tangible freedom?
Tangible freedom. There is no tangible freedom.
What
That's
is
why
that?
we are feeling so many problems.
But
In any
who-
thinking or any living.
who has taken away your freedom? Is there somebody else who has taken away your freedom? Freedom to act according to what you consider as a right action. There may be opposition. And that's why you may feel that there is no freedom. But are you afraid of that opposition? Are you not prepared to face opposition and stand by your own understanding of what you consider as right, own conviction? If that is not there, then can you really blame others for your freedom? From whom we are expecting freedom to act what I consider as right. I may fail in my action. And therefore, if I am not acting, then that means I am afraid of failure, not of right action. And therefore, I act in a manner where there is no opposition, where there is no fear of failure. So I am more concerned about success or failure, not about action. So when I act, I focus my attention on the probable outcome. If that outcome is favorable to me, I act. If that outcome is likely to be unfavorable to me, it desists me from acting.
One more thing about freedom. Normally we have this to fit in with the people or the peer pressure where you
Yeah.
don't want to be different from them, so that you follow whatever is happening on a general level. So then you feel you're not free because you have to be in that. If you
Yeah,
stand up for yourself,
But,
then you're
but,
alone.
but why you want to be in that?
That's the
Because
idea.
you are afraid of standing alone. There
That's
again,
what-
that fear is there. Yeah.
That's what you're going to be
Hmm.
separated from what
Yeah.
you're doing.
So we are not with others.
Leave the restriction. Then
We
it's
are
restriction.
not with others with that feeling of universal brotherhood, but we need support of other for our own separate existence. We want to be together, to be separate.
Still having the individual
Yeah.
identity intact.
So we have that feeling of separate existence at the core of things when we are together. We really don't have that togetherness at the heart of it. हा? आपल्याला इतरांची गरज स्वतःसाठी भासत असते. इतरासाठी आपण एक आहोत या जाणीवेपेक्षा एकत्र राहिल्यामुळे आपलं एकट्याचं अस्तित्व सुरक्षित आहे ही भावना त्याच्यात जास्त असते. आणि म्हणून आपण लोकांना धरून असतो. आपल्या मनात नसलं तरी सुद्धा होयला होय म्हणतो. नाही म्हटलं तर दुसरा कोणीतरी आपल्या विरोधात जाईल ही भीती असते. म्हणजे वी वॉन्ट टू बी टुगेदर फॉर अवर ओन पर्सनल सेल्फ,
For the universal.
not for the universal. Yeah.
Can I read this?
चालीरीती असतात, जे काही कस्टम्स असतात,
त्याचं सुद्धा तेच आहे.
इंडिव्हिज्युअल,
हा.
कारण त्याला ती इनसिक्युरिटी वाटते.
एक तर इन्सिक्युरिटी वाटते की नाही मला माहिती नाही, कारण त्या पठडीमध्ये आपण इतके फिक्स बसलेले असतो की त्या गोष्टी करणं हे आवश्यकच आहे अशी एक आपल्या मनाची धारणा झालेली असते. कुठलीही विधी माझा त्याच्यावर जो विश्वास असतो तो प्रामाणिक विश्वास नसतो, ती श्रद्धा नसते. तर तो थोडासा आपला ज्याला भोळसेटपणा म्हणतो. हा, म्हणजे सगळे लोक करतायत आपणही करायचं.
काय म्हणतील?
हा,
लोक काय म्हणतील?
लोक काय म्हणतील हे एक असतं, पण त्याचबरोबर टुगेदरनेस. आता कुंभमेळा चाललाय. सुरुवातीला लोक कमी जात होते, आता इतके लोक जात आहेत कोट्यवधी, मग आपणही कसे मागे राहायचं. म्हणजे एक प्रकारचं मास सायकोलॉजी तीही आपल्याला घेरून टाकते. जे सगळे करतात तेच आपण केलं पाहिजे ही क्राऊड मेंटॅलिटी तीही त्याच्यामध्ये वाढते. म्हणजे आपल्याला तुम्ही म्हणता तसं मान्य नाही तरी करावं लागणं हा वेगळा भाग. म्हणजे कित्येकांच्या बाबतीत ते असतं की चला घरातले सगळे लोक चाललेत, मला पसंत नाही, पण मी एकटं वेगळं कसं राहायचं म्हणून मी त्यांच्याबरोबर जातो. एखाद्याला मंदिरात जाणं पसंत नसेल, पण इतरांना दुखवायचं कशाला म्हणून, किंवा मला एकट्यात घरी एकाकी बसून काय करणार मी, दॅट इज मोर डिसअपॉइंटिंग. हा, ब्लॅक शिप ते कशाला व्हायचं. म्हणून मग इतरांच्या कलाने जायचं. ह्या दोन्ही टाईपला कृष्णमूर्ती हे त्याच्या विरोधात होते. यू स्टँड ॲज अन इंडिव्हिज्युअल. यू मस्ट हॅव कन्सिडरेशन, compassion for others, but that does not mean you should imitate them.
Can I read this passage because it's really very profound?
Yeah.
Of Krishnamurti's last interview, last talk. So it's a very profound
Just
thing.
1 minute. Listen to her.
Yeah, I just read this passage. Yeah. Krishnamurti's last lecture or interview or whatever you call it.
She is reading extracts from the last lecture of Krishnamurti. Just listen to her.
We are trying to find out what it means to die while living, not committing suicide. I'm not talking about that kind of nonsense. I want to find out for myself what it means to die, which means, can I be totally free from everything that man has created, including myself? What does it mean to die? To give up everything. Death cuts you off with a very sharp razor from your attachments, from your gods, from your superstitions, from your desire for comfort, next life, and so on and on. I'm going to find out what death means because it is as important as living. Put that question to yourself. While we are young or when you are very old, this question is always there. It means to be totally free, to be totally unattached to everything that man has put together or what you have put together. Totally free. No attachments, no gods, no future, no past. See the beauty of it, the greatness of it, the extraordinary strength of it while living to be dying. You understand what that means? While you are living, every moment you are dying, so that throughout life you are not attached to anything. That is what that means. So living is dying. You understand? Living means that every day you're abandoning everything that you are attached to. Can you do this? A very simple fact, but it has tremendous implications. So that each day is a new day. Each day you're dying and incarnating. There is a tremendous vitality, energy there because there is nothing you're afraid of. There is nothing that can hurt. Being hurt doesn't exist. All the things that man has put together have to be totally abandoned. That's what it means to die. So can you do it? Will you try it? Will you experiment with it? Not for just a day, every day. Your brains are not trained for this. Your brains have been conditioned so heavily by your education, by your tradition, by your books, by your professors. It requires finding out what love is. Love and death go together. Death says, be free, non-attached. You can carry nothing with you. And love says, there is no word for it. Love can exist only when there is freedom, not from your wife, from a new girl or a new husband, but the feeling, the enormous strength, the vitality, the energy of complete freedom. And Krishnamurti's, of course, body died on February 17, 1986.
Yeah. So he was really a outstanding free thinker. He doesn't rely upon anything, past, future. That's why he is a person who talks about ending of time. We are bound by time. We have ties with past and also with future. Even as spiritual aspirant, we might be aiming at a better life next incarnation. Krishnamurti never talks about those things, either past life or future life. Live the life as it is right now. Live moment to moment, he says. That's why he says, you are dying and living every moment, dying to the past and living in the present. The moment the present becomes past, it is no longer present. Which means if you have no this attachment with time, every moment you are free. All those limitations come because of our attachment with time. We cannot give up those attachments. We carry them in the future and carry that burden throughout our life. Therefore, we are not free.
त्यात एक एक्झाम्पल आहे की गाडीतून म्हणजे ट्रेन मधनं माणूस चाललेला आहे आणि त्याच्या डोक्यावर 2 सुटकेस आहे. दुसरा म्हणतो अरे तू थ्रोआउट कसं नाही करतो, आता इथे जागा आहे तिथे ठेव आणि हे कर. तर ते माणसाचं थ्रूआउट लाईफ तसं असतं की अननेसेसरी अनवॉन्टेड जे लगेज असतं ते त्याच्या डोक्यात नेहमी असतं.
That is why they carry the burden of the past into the future and don't live in the present because of it.
Fine line is wrong.
Krishnamurti calls it a furniture which you are not going to use, which you, due to attachment, keep it gathering dust. And that only leads to unhygienic conditions. And that is what is happening to the present humanity. That's why probably he says, nobody has followed my message.
We want to be acclaimed for every little thing that we do. So we get medals. मैंने अपने इनफैक्ट लिखा भी है ये कि मेडल्स में जाते हैं, चलो आपने कुछ अच्छा किया, ताली बजाई, मेडल मिल गया, घर में आके उसको जिंदगी भर साथ रखना पड़ता है. To keep that medal shining, to tell people, see, I have won this.
Yes.
But it is gone. It is past. It is no more valuable. You are as successful as your last success.
प्रॅक्टिकली पण बघायला गेलं तर आजकाल सुद्धा लोकांना ते अटॅचमेंट असतं. आजोबांची आर्म चेअर ते 2-3 पिढ्या 3 पिढ्यापासून चालत आली होती, ती टाकायची नाही, ती माझ्यासाठी व्हॅल्युएबल आहे. मग तो तेच इम्प्रेशन आणि तेच त्या पुढच्या पिढीवर होतं किंवा यांचं आहे ते आपल्याला टाकायचं नाही. ती काळी मूळ असेल किंवा ती त्याचा यूज काहीच नसेल तरी ती आडगळीची वस्तू जरी आपल्या खोलीत असेल तरी ती त्यांना ती फार व्हॅल्युएबल.
पण फिजिकल थिंगच्या बाबतीत हे आपल्याला समजतं, पण द थिंग्स विच आर सटलर, understanding and applying those principles to those subtler things, like our opinions, like our likes and dislikes, like our principles even. I am a man of principle. त्या प्रिन्सिपल्सना मी अटॅच एवढा झालेला असतो की I cannot perhaps find principles in other man. बरेचदा प्रिन्सिपल्स अँड पर्टिक्युलर्स याच्यामध्ये सुद्धा आपला गोंधळ त्यामुळे होतो की युनिव्हर्सल प्रिन्सिपल्स अँड माय प्रिन्सिपल्स. प्रिन्सिपल्स कॅनॉट बी लाईक दॅट. प्रिन्सिपल्स हॅव टू बी युनिव्हर्सल, पण माय प्रिन्सिपल्स आर लाईक दॅट. म्हणजे
Even
there
if
is
you
a conflict between principle of one person and principles of other person.
Yes, somebody was saying something.
yeah. So I was also saying, apart from that, people hold on to their hurts, HURT, hurt. So they hold on to those hurts which they have experienced. 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
Trauma.
Hurt by somebody, by somebody's. I mean, whatever the hurts they have experienced in their past, and they keep holding on.
Not only hurts, even events or pleasure, we store them in our mind. So
correct.
Anything that we preserve burdens our mind, and we carry that. So that it makes difficult for the mind to remain alive, active in the present. When we burden the mind, the mental energy is lost in those things, either in remembering or in speculating, past or future, forgetting the present. That's why Krishnamurti always insists on living in the present, so that we will live with that creative energy of the mind moment to moment. And if we do that, then action is also instantaneous. The moment you realize the necessity of an action, you act. You don't wait. You don't think. Because you see what is urgent, what is immediate. Understanding this urgency or immediacy is also important from the point of view of Krishnamurti. Because there again, his ending of time. That is, we live in the time. If we keep aside this element of time, then we act instantaneously.
This is what you're saying
Yeah.
in his last talk.
Acha, in his last talk at Vasanta Vihar in Chennai, what he says, I will just read. Creation is something that is most holy. That is the most sacred thing
Sacred, huh?
in life. And if you have made a mess of your life, change it. So this is the fundamental change is referring to.
That's true.
Change it today, not tomorrow. See. And he will further say, change it right now. Don't wait for the evening or night.
I mean, in the moment you can change it if you wish to. That is
Yeah, but that also presumes that you have the ability
Awareness.
to see what is right.
awareness.
Right action. That you can see if your mind is not burdened with all these things. Only an empty, open mind can see what is right and act accordingly.
That's why
Therefore, that urgency, immediacy presumes that your mind is of that kind, a new mind. So when he says, nobody has followed me, nobody has really attempted to bring his mind to that evergreen mind, ever fresh mind.
That is what he said, and I'm disappointed that in through all my talks, what my simple message was to think your own thoughts.
Yeah.
By keeping your mind empty and open, think
Yeah.
your own thoughts. But
Yeah.
people are still going to what is already been taught, and they're not able to think their own thoughts.
Yeah.
They're not able to transform their life.
He says, when you think also how you are thinking. Because we many times think in the past, what has happened in the past. We want a precedent many times. We want what other people have done. So we want to go safe. We don't want to take risk. We are afraid to experiment. And therefore better to go by the way other people have trodden. So it is not a fresh action. It is a repetition of an action in the past. It may be a thoughtful action, but still it is not emerging from that creative mind. It is emerging from the past memory. So he is giving a message that live moment to moment. Yes.
All these things are possible in a very ideal condition. Whatever.
That's why he says.
Then in the practical condition, what is existing?
This differentiation between what is practical and what is ideal is a clever invention of our mind only. That is what he says. Our mind always helps us to remain in the same state, so that mind survives its existence.
The best part is
because mind is nothing but all these thoughts which we have gathered. There is no separate independent existence as such.
We don't just to the ideal condition. We don't cling to ideal condition. We more rely on the practical condition for their.
What is practical?
For him there is no distinction between actual or practical and ideal. In fact, he discards that word ideal, because ideal is something which mind has created in order that you can postpone things which you want to do now, which you don't want to do now.
In fact, he talks of conflict also. he talks of conflict all the time. He says conflict of the mind because that is the mind has created an ideal of a particular image.
Yeah.
And you are trying to have a conflict between what is real and what is ideal, and that is what he says you have to remove. You cannot have conflict.
Real and ideal.
So he says, don't have that concept of ideal because that is created
exactly.
by mind itself.
Yes. Because we always, it is like a creation of a God. God is our ideal. So we want God to remain there only where He is. We don't want to become God ourselves. So that we can always worship Him and live life like man. Therefore, that idea divinity is a good thing from a distance. We don't want to apply it to ourselves and become divine. Because it is good as an ideal, but to become divine means I have to give up so many things which I consider as essential part of my manhood. We want to maintain that distinction between manhood and Godhead.
That is one thing. Like we people who have really come out of the box and done something on their own, we idolize them, considering that they have been free thinkers, their own self-transformation, and they've got something to the world. But we follow them, not taking an example that they really thought themselves to be free to do something no matter what the world is, or standing alone, and taking that as an example. But we take that, okay, now this is the teaching, you have to follow that. Idolize people.
शिवाजी महाराज जन्माला यावे पण शेजारच्या घरात कारण शेवटी शिवाजी महाराज जेव्हा जन्माला येते तेव्हा घरातल्या मातेला सुद्धा जिजाबाई व्हावं लागतं ती कपॅसिटी नसल्यामुळे ते काय म्हणतात शेजारच्या घरात जन्माला आलेलं पाहतो.
That is what we idolize people like that who have done great things, different from the general public or people or humanity. But we don't want to be like them. We want to follow them and as their teachers. To be like them because they've already given something to us and now it is easier to follow them. We don't want to stand out from there and do something.
This idea of brotherhood is taught thousands of years. But it is a start, let us say, in our Indian case system. We start our history in epics, that is the Ramayana, Mahabharata. There never happened a brotherhood. There is the Mahabharata, Kaurava and Pandava, Ramayana. There is a Raman, this one, Ravana. After history is continuing. Is a divine thing? Is that? Is a divine plan that? Divine itself is think that there should not be brotherhood. Because this, in the all parts of the history, thousands of lakhs of years, there is each stage, each part, there are saints like a Kabirs. In Maharashtra, there are so many saints. Before that, the rishis, so many rishis are there. They are preaching, they are teaching, same thing. But not come to reality. That is not existing. Only out of 100, only 1% behave, ideally a brother would behave like this. At least discussing like this. If there should be a unity among the people. There is no separation because there is a small bacteria having the same life in the rishi also. That it is not coming to reality. Thousands of years this process is.
Therefore, probably Krishnamurti uses the term actuality rather than reality.
Exactly.
So we don't become idealists. If at all we want to change, we have to change as we are, not a dream of becoming ideal in future. That's why he says ending of time again. Don't wait for time to come to become that. Rather, being is his emphasis on being rather than becoming.
Being.
Yeah. So we have to be like what we really see as ideal. Not, it shouldn't remain as an ideal to be attained in future.
That's sure.
Yeah. Then only there will be immediate change. Otherwise, we will wait for evolutionary change after several incarnations. Perhaps that is one reason why people thought that Krishnamurti has discarded the idea of that gradual evolution over time. Evolution of matter is different from consciousness. Consciousness, unfoldment of consciousness has to be instantaneous. That will not take time, a gradual thing. That has to be immediate.
And one mistake is there indirectly. This is the way the human race started. In the revolt throughout thousands years, we have always taught that is a success is only a reality. That is again the law of nature. Nature is a duality, because there is symmetry only.
Yeah.
Positive, negative. If positive come to this downside, negative come to the worst. It's a symmetry only. What we are teaching to the children, you should get only a first class. You should be a successful. That is not reality.
That is why
Failure of the reality.
that is the reason his education was based on value creation, not about competition or comparison.
Failure is the reality.
Yeah.
One is better than the other. We did not believe in that kind of
In science also, science
everybody
also
has a unique quality.
positive charge. Right. There is an electron also. If positive is there, no world will exist. If negative is there, no world exists. It's a two sides of the same coin. This is the reality. We never, and it is not only present problem. It is has been taught thousands of years in the society. In our reality, in Indian state, it is more because that's why if somebody is unsuccessful, is a failure, boy, girl, or even human being, person go to the suicide. If you know that this is also reality. So this thought is not propagated, not anywhere. It's only success.
Yeah.
That is not reality.
We have to be stable in both.
Accept it, doesn't matter.
We should be centered.
Therefore, C.V. Raman used to say that is, I am a master in the failure. He used to do I am a doctorate in, not in failure, I am a master in the failure.
Yes, okay. Now it is 12 noon, so I think an ideal time to conclude.
When you talk, we forget the time. Relativity.
Yes.
Universal prayer.
Yeah. So, shall we conclude?
Today's session.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Oh.
See you all at 4 p.m. and then later at 5:30 p.m. online or physical presence.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.